Please, I don't have any time for any gossip now. Eh? Yes.
Look at
Please, I don't have any time for any gossip now. Eh? Yes.
Look at it.
Throughout history, many people have dared to do different things.
To go against the tide, to speak out, and to change the course of history.
To dare means to be brave enough to do something.
To dare is to be aware of the wounds of the society.
To dare is to take action.
In this United World Week 2021, we want to dare to care.
That is why, from May 1 to 9,
We will build a global network of fraternal actions
that put care at the center.
Yes, it will be a global network, because beyond physical and cultural borders,
We know that caring is universal value and that building a more fraternal world is possible.
Many physical and digital events will take place.
Some will be local initiatives, others global.
People from
Others
all over the
global.
world will be connected from
Others
all over the
global.
world
and you will be
connected.
able to join in wherever you are. What matters is that every event and every person who joins
Has enough strength to build a more united world.
by learning,
Others
all over the world will be
and sharing.
and you. What do you dare to care of? What do you dare to care of?
Gondoskodás.
Polvoda.
Care.
Polvoda.
Proteger.
Zaбота.
Riaya.
Забота.
Riaya.
Condução. Zorg tragen. Zorg tragen.
Cuidar.
Aruga,
Cuidar.
aruga,
Curar. Curar.
Buonasera e
So,
benvenuti.
good evening.
Buonasera
Welcome
e
to this
benvenuti.
new moment of United World Week 2021, the 25th edition of the Week for United World, the international festival promoted by the young people of the Focolare and hundreds of thousands of young people of any age, culture, and belief. Tonight we talk about legality of us in the time of Covid-19. Meeting promoted in connection with the Città Nuova review that can be followed on YouTube, streaming with translation in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. I thank the organizers of this event, whose slogan is Dare to Care. I thank those who will follow us with a Zoom connection. My name is Sara Fornaro, journalist of the Città Nuova review. We have also economist Luigino Bruni, magistrate of National Direction Antimafia Giuseppe Gatti, and journalist of RAI Gianni Bianco, Italian television, Eugenio Tassone of Young People for United World, and Father Luigi Ciotti, president of Libera, in association Numbers Against the Mafia. During the COVID-19 pandemic, mafia and crime organizations have flourished. They renewed their criminal activity. The economic crisis provoked by the pandemic and these inequalities have increased, and they were a fertile ground for new illegal trade, while others, such as usury, have grown exponentially. Mafias adapt very well to the social change, and they flourish where there is poverty, injustice, inequality, and corruption. Pope Francis said that mafias are structures that are contrary to the gospel of Jesus Christ. So let's begin this dialogue by trying to understand more. We talk with Luigino Bruni, economist, professor at LUMSA University and point of reference for the economy of Francesco. Good evening, Luigino. Good evening and thank you. Pandemic provoked a serious economic crisis. It showed the limits of the present patterns. It provoked disequality, isolation, and environmental problems. Pope Francis spoke about a a sick economy. What is the real situation? Well, economy was already sick before the COVID. It has been sick for many points of view. It was a debilitated body that was then affected by the virus, and we know the only aspect that did not suffer more in comparison to before in the COVID was the pollution of CO2, because with less flights and less traffic jams, the Earth could breathe. But in a short while, we'll go back as we were before, because the real problem of this crisis is that many people are waiting to go back to live as we were living before. So it seems that we are not learning the most important lesson that this serious problem had to give, that is that a certain way of living, of being in the world, or a certain kind of capitalism, as we used to say in the past, is not sustainable. But many people didn't understand that because we mostly discuss about healthcare aspects. So when the vaccine will cover everyone, we hope globally, and young people from the world have this at heart. So when vaccination will cover everyone and we have the lock effect, the flock effect everywhere, then we'll go back to have holidays and business as we did before. And that would be a waste of some waste. So economy was already sick. Some pathologies were increased, such as disequality. We understand very well that some big businesses have earned from this crisis without going to the complot theory. I think that if the main enterprises of our time, such as IT, web-related, etc., did not earn from this pandemic, maybe we could insist to get to normality even before, because the whole world of logistics, the whole sectors of IT, web, etc., they earned a lot from this crisis. So we'll have a more unequal world.
Pensiamo al mondo degli albergatori in Italia, non solo. Avremo settori, il lavoro informale, cioè del più povero di prima, avremo gente più ricca di prima. Ecco perché
formal sectors that are more rich than before. So we must organize it such a way that those who earn more to pay more taxes than earn more, to pay more taxes than earn. So our economy was already sick, and it will be even more, but almost for everyone. So not under a total justice. So before going ahead, I want to say to those who follow us on Zoom and YouTube that they can ask questions or they can share their experiences, and I will ask the questions to the speakers.
Eu vou tentar colocar a pergunta para vocês. Seguindo em frente,
about bad economy, corruption, what is the burden on economy? And economy and legality, is it a possible
e economia e
couple?
legalidade é binômio possível, realizável?
Economy is a picture of people. We cannot imagine a health economy if the body is sick. So, in Italy, the economy of mafia is there because there are the mafias that generate it, and there is a dangerous vicious circle. So it is clear that while today we are speaking about this webinar, there are people who are doing beautiful things thanks to economy, and they are helping biodiversity. The world is becoming better thanks to some kind of enterprises. But while this happens, there's another part of the world that is becoming worse because
so
this goes through the whole life, like politics, like and like corruption also. So certainly today there are strong couples, but it is a problem of mentality. I am concerned of mafia in the strict sense, as Liber and other people, as Liber and other people, as Liber and corruption concerns because it is serious, it kills it. Causes killings, it is a real tumor. Causes killings, it is a real 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 causes the gambling. Some people think that legal gambling fights against illegal gambling. No, they grew together, so it is totally false. So there is an illegality, an immorality in economy that also enters in things that are apparently legal. We can think of the word of fiscal paradise, fiscal illusion. They are apparently legal because if you're a good lawyer, you can find a place as a tax haven for your client. These are forms of serious corruption because they create a mentality where mafia can work more easily. So if we fight the economy of mafia, but at the same time we don't fight the legal economy, that creates a cultural background that prepares vices, mistakes, etc. And that we tolerate, we think, oh, these are things that happen, doesn't matter. That's very serious. So it's a problem of mentality, which is very much widespread, and it produces the worst gambling in the world. We are the most gambling country in Europe, and that produces corruption that becomes serious in the mafias. You have been a point of reference of the economy of Francesco, and I hope I can still be. It is not over. So in Greece, great event, a pact for a sustainable economy was launched that takes care of money in integral way and careful to the environment. Do you think it is really possible to give life to an economy of us, and how?
Allora, innanzitutto penso che sia possibile perché la
First of all,
vedo.
it is possible because I see that economy, instead of a philosophy or theology that can be totally imagined in the mind of people, has the advantage that it is there or it isn't there. You cannot imagine an economy that is not something concrete, that it has to do with the life of people. So as there is already a reality, not only the economy of Francesco, but many other realities of the economy that make people live, and the Pope speaks about economy that kills, but while economy kills, also it makes people live. And if you don't take care, don't cultivate the economy that kills, if you don't cultivate the economy that makes living, we cannot heal someone who is sick if you don't have an idea of health. I never loved economists who make money, much money, to heal economy. They go in business class and they do meetings where they talk badly about economy. I don't have this kind of approach because it is like going to the doctor and I'm sick and he says, oh, human body is a disaster. No, I will change doctor. So economists have to speak good about economics because there is a physiology of economy that is the fact that people produce, that increases the biodiversity of the planet, making generational collective actions, etc. So this dimension is already there in the world of economy. But what's the difference between now and some years ago? While some years ago when we spoke about the social, civil economy, communion, etc., we went around and people listened and made a smile and said, okay, but real economy is a different thing. This is just limoncello after dinner, you know, or I remember the meetings that we did on stage with managers who spoke about the social balance, and then many people believe that these are unimportant things. But why today there is more attention to the ethical speeches? Because the practice has changed. So if the attitude of people change, also in a matter of environment, this kind of capitalism is not sustainable. We all see that in the cities, in the mountains, the rain, etc. We all realize that even in our private dimension, there is a problem of sustainability. So if the practice changes, also the different ideas have more strength. This was taught by Karl Marx, but by others also. So if economic structure doesn't change, the ideas are just fried air. So today it is important to talk more about sustainability, not only a green approach. That's not sufficient. A green economy, a circular economy, in order to be an economy of Francesco. We need to listen to the poor, because we have a problem today that for this great importance that we have to give to environment, the problem that works for the poor, for social justice, for the traditional justice that is not green, they don't even receive funding. Because if in a bid you don't put circularity, you don't receive any money. So the risk is displacing good intentions on the environment. And we forget that the great message of the Pope is that the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor is the same cry. So in the economy of Francesco is like St. Francis of Assisi, who praised the sister moon, brother sun. He preached to the fishes and birds, but he kissed the lepers. The economy of Francesco does the two things. He calls the brother sun and sister moon and care for the environment, but that's not enough. We have to be careful to the lepers also. This is in line with the Bible. So the chapter 1 of Genesis is used to talk about Adam, the human aspect that had to take care of the earth, and Shema as a verb. And then we find in chapter 4, when Cain comes back from the land, he says, I'm not the guardian of my brother. So there to care is not is shamar shamer of my brother, of the earth. So guardianship that is only of one or another is not the economy of Francesco. Francesco guards the brother and guards the earth at the same time. It's the economy of Francesco takes care of the earth, and while it takes care of the earth, while it takes care, not after, it takes care of the land, also it takes care of the marginalized brothers and sisters who are poor. So a question arrived for you. It is said that some people say that, okay, the slogan is dare to care. How can we take care of economy on a daily basis? So we have to remember how Dare to Care was born. I was talking to Yolanda today, one of the leaders. So Dare to Care, the part of care, I care, the part of care, I care, important sentence, the part of care, I care, important sentence, use the care, I care, important sentence, use the care, I care, important sentence, use the care, I care, important sentence, and some illiterate young people, after buying in the cemetery the tomb for himself, because he knew that he was going to die there. After buying this tomb for himself in Barbiani, in the first lessons he did, he wrote on the door, I care. He wrote it in English, not in Italian, to say, you're not stupid if you're poor. And how did he explain this, I care? What does it mean? It is the opposite than the fascist, I don't care, in Italian this time. So you take care of economy. If you do care, if you don't turn your face. So how all the gambling activity came out and anti-gambling activity came out from young people who one day entering a pub, they saw the slot machine. They were already there, but on that day they noticed them, and they didn't say, "Oh, I don't care," okay, let them ruin themselves if they want. So no, they say that I want to care of my city, so I want to fight in order to reduce this, in order to eliminate this. So to look around, we shouldn't always go around with our earphones closed in our musical world while we go around. If you don't listen to the noise of the city, you don't listen to people talking, if you don't look around, doesn't work. Care begins by listening to the cry and the voice of people. So listening to being attentive, being careful, this attention to the life around us. So thank you very much, Luigino. You were talking about the economy of us. Let's shift to the topic of this, which is the legality. We talk about this with Giuseppe Gatti, who wrote with this about the legality of us. Giuseppe, what are we talking when we say legality of us?
Senza le regole non possiamo stare insieme, senza le regole non ci potrebbe essere neanche questo noi.
Without rules, there cannot be this you.
La legalità ha una sua essenza profonda.
Okay.
Questa essenza viene prima delle leggi, delle sanzioni, dei processi.
This essence is absolutely necessary. The essence of legality. This is action, human relations. This is the deep soul of legality. And if things are like that, there is no such thing as one legality. There are many types of legality, as many as the types of relationships we can build among us. And in this sense, there is a clash relationship, somebody who is antagonistic towards others, who sees the other as an enemy, somebody to dominate. And in this model of relationship, there is a specific way of legality, one which is vertical, and it is founded on violence, on prevarication, on the idea that we can be together as one is above, the other one is below, one commands, the other suffers, one is in power and the other is subjected. As though we are together on a great scale, but never on the same level. These are authoritarian regimes, dictatorships, and mafias, because whether we like it or not, mafias have their own rule book, their own constitution, which is a legal system which is even more pressing and more coercive than that of a state. But there is also another model. This is another version, another system of legality, and everything starts from the vision of others, because others may be something different, a gift, somebody traveling with you along the path. If this is my other, then the relationship changes. It's no longer a clash. The way we are together is circular, not vertical. It places us together. It includes us. It welcomes us. This is codified in the great international charters. Imagine that in the preamble to the Universal Declaration of the Rights of Men, it says that all men are born equal and free. Everybody has the same quality in terms of rights, and they have the same conscience, and they must act one another in a spirit of fraternity. And therefore they can be together because they are kept together, they are held together by the duty of fraternity. And this is the legality of us. This is a legality which unifies, which welcomes, which includes, which helps us to all hold one another by the hand as in a large circle. And I hark back to what Luigino Bruni has just said. It is true, we are at a time of crisis, which is deep. It is economic, social, political, and a pandemic crisis at that. This is all true, but the true crisis and the root of this crisis is the crisis of us. And it is on this crisis of us, on this emptiness of community, that mafias and organized crime develop and consolidate their power. Thank you. As you were speaking, we were asked on social media, what the legality of us is, and then you began to explain it. It's not being alone, it's being united for legality, and there will be many other examples which will be pronounced tonight in order to explain what this is. Now, however, let's try to understand what we are talking about when we talk about the power of mafias, plural, and criminality. You work in this field, you operate in the struggle against mafia organizations. Where does their strength come from? How are they able to structure, to prosper at an international level, but especially as we speak about it at a time of COVID, with what in the current pandemic situation, how has this power configured itself? How has it changed? Well, the fact that mafias are very, very powerful organizations, not only nationally, but internationally, is out of question, of course. But there's a question which has been with me for years and which I always carry with me. And the question is, where does the power of mafia organizations come from? What are the roots of this power? And one possible answer is not so much linked to my studies, but one experience which I lived out on the field as a judge. For a long time, I dealt with the mafia of the city of Foggia in Italy, which has become a real emergency at a national level. There seemed to be nobody collaborating with justice, not since 2007. There are no people reporting since from 1978 to today. There have been 300 homicides, and we only discovered 20%. So this is a situation which is truly terrible. It was able to marry up tradition and modernity, so the family ties and the ferocity of 'Ndrangheta with modern times and the ability to infiltrate the political system and the administrative fabric in order to launder all the monies coming from drug trafficking, tourism, agricultural mafia. This is a mafia putting together the old and the new. This is where its strength lies. At a certain point a few years ago, I was dealing with a loan sharking situation, and we were recording, we were bugging their communications. And at a certain point, they talk about an extortion which was being carried out against a shopkeeper. And they say how much money they were asking of him and what threats there were. Now, to have this kind of data for a public prosecutor is bingo in a way. It's very, very important and crucial. But that information wasn't enough for me to move on to court, because the counterpart would have said that their clients were joking and they were showing off, and there was nothing true. So I needed to speak to the victim. So I call up the victim and I present them with the recordings which I had, because I wanted people to see, I wanted everyone to see that I was the one who had placed him before that, and that the mafia perpetrators had not reported. In this way, he would be protected. But despite this, he never spoke. And only after many, many hours, when he was completely exhausted, almost to get rid of me, he said, look, let's say this, that what I heard the mafia representatives say today is not so far from truth. So I thought that that was a small step. Perhaps this person is finally understanding that they need to free themselves from the mafia oppression, that mafia is evil, and therefore in some way I would expect to see him more happy and more surprised. And he seems to be even worse. He starts crying, and I said, well, what's the problem? And he says, because of this cooperation of yours, we can arrest these people. The state will be able to intervene. There are laws which support you, even financially. You will be protected, and so will your family. Are you still afraid? And he said, no, I'm not afraid of any mafia at the moment. I'm afraid of something else. And I said, which one? And he said, do you want to know what I'm afraid of? I said, yes. And he said, my fear is that when everybody knows at the trial what I did with you here today, nobody will come to my bar anymore to have a coffee. At which point I was shocked. It was a Copernican revolution. I was always convinced that the power of the mafia was within the mafia, in its ability to control, in weapons, in money, in political infiltrations. Instead, the mafia operates at a powerful level outside of this place. It was in that bar where a citizen, any citizen, one of us, could not go and purchase and spend money there. So the power of the mafia was not within, but we are the power of the mafia when we develop that mafia-like mindset, that who cares, that it doesn't bother me. As Luigino Bruni said, that approach which brings us to think that what's happening is always about others, that we just need to carry on and not worry about others and do what is convenient, what is expedient, and bring our interests to a head. This is that kind of legality of the I, of ourselves, and it is the same legality of mafia which connects small and great contradictions of ours with the pathological structures of organized crime. And all this generates, this is the legality of I, and it generates a void in our communities, and this void generates solitude. The strength of mafia is that of creating solitude, that of ensuring you have no links. So fighting this means to win over solitude. How do we do this? We do this by developing an ability to encounter other people. Mafias are more and more powerful because the pandemic has accentuated solitude and this vulnerability of being alone in economics, in politics, in social dimensions. This is a global relational vulnerability because we are afraid of others today. And what has been doubted today is the very essence of our being, women and men. Mafia organizations have always exploited vulnerability, and therefore this will be a great opportunity for them, as has happened in the past. They will do their best to exploit this to the best of their ability. And today's mafias are not those of the past. The mafia model has deeply changed. Mafias today are part of the economic and administrative fabric. They are less and less military mafias. They don't bomb. They don't shoot. They click on keyboards. They move as a network. They offer services. They are enterprises. They try to manage power not through intimidation, but through convenience, logic of exchange and convenient, trying in a way to gain consensus, because through consensus you will strengthen your opportunity to condition others. And to do this, they speak to external people more and more, the gray zone. Many good citizens and many qualified citizens, professionals, entrepreneurs, public civil servants and politicians who make their abilities, make their skills available to deal with mafia organizations. This is a network which is ever growing and creates a lot of alarm. Think about this last year in the pandemic. Homicides have diminished and all blood-related crimes have diminished, but corruption is on the increase, money laundering is on the increase, and company share transfers have increased, as well as political exchange votes between politicians and mafia representatives. So you see that the system is evolving, and this evolution did not start today, but the pandemic risks making this even more exacerbated. Giuseppe Thomas, who is 15, makes us notice that mafias prosper where the state is absent, where there is poverty, inequality, where there is no state service. You go to the Godfather, as it were. Franca instead makes us note that one way to combat the mafia is that of combating mafia existing in the judiciary, but I think this would be a wider ranging conversation. If you feel like answering, I would ask you one further question. We spoke about mafia organizations, the legality of us, but there is also an I. As a citizen, before being with you, Gianni, Lugino, and others in this legality of us, what can I do day by day to enhance legality against corruption and against these vicious organizations? The first question is the strongest one. It is true, the relationship between mafia organizations and the community is changing, and this change is underway. These network mafias are very scary. There are some contexts where I've identified a phenomenon which is of mafia dependence, mafia addiction, as the addict depends on drugs and the alcoholic depends on the bottle. In some contexts, the victims depend on the organization. They are unable to imagine their own life horizon except the one that mafia organization manages. So you're missing for money, you go to the mafia, they will lend you money. If you need a house, they will sort you out. If you have a problem with, you want to start a company, that's what you do. You have a problem with your competitor you are working with who doesn't pay you, so you go there and they help you. Somebody steals your car and a mafia finds your car back again. So these bribes are no longer an extortion, but it is the recognition of a sovereignty tax. It means I am recognizing that the mafia has the power to do the things that the state should do, and that bribe simply becomes a tariff for that. And in the Foggia mafia, there is a list of extortions, for example, and it's almost as though the tax man is coming round. There are installments, there are all different ways and easy solutions which the mafia is happy to abide by if you recognize their sovereignty and abdicate to your freedom. It is with these mafias that we need to deal with in a context of vulnerability. But the pandemic is not just vulnerability to exploit. The pandemic also offers another perspective. It has created crises between people and in relationships, but it has also made us aware of how important it is to proceed together. We are interdependent, however. What is happening in India, and we see this today, it calls us into play the next day. So we're all connected, everybody. And so the approach to vulnerability can be completely different. We are in front of a crossroads to exploit vulnerability and to enter this perverse logic, or to cure, to look after, to care for vulnerability, to support this through a pathway of sharing, of cooperation. This is the legality of us, which becomes a contrast strategy. We cannot contrast mafias with a logic of mafia. We are not at war against the mafia because war is part of their dynamic. And this is the model which is wrong. We need to state our values, our models, our ideas. Circular legality is the statement of a relationship which is alternative at all levels. It is to contrast, to preempt. This is why my pool of judges works together. We are a team, we cooperate. police, carabinieri, the tax police, we all work together and we all make one another's skills available to everybody. And we do this internationally. For example, now with other nations, we are developing some cooperation models which are of great novelty. Common investigative teams, magistrates and judges from other states share a strategy which is the result of a connection of relationships, and this is the way we contrast the mafia. And it mustn't just be repressive, it also needs to be preemptive. The us model, the model of encounter, of welcoming, of recognizing others, the idea to follow the common good as an individual choice, because we build us with personal choices, and personal choices are expensive choices. To go against the mainstream, to say no to a shortcut, to say no to a way of getting through in an easy way. These are the ways in which we can skip obstacles. To say no to all this costs, and this is where we are witnessing the us, and we build it with a coherence of behavior. And this personal coherence needs to become a community project. We need to meet others in an itinerary, in a collective action. This is the way in which we build the us, and this us generates processes of change, also in contexts and situations which are unthinkable.
Se riesci, purtroppo soltanto in un minuto, ci sono tantissime domande e io te ne porrei soltanto due, mi scuso con gli altri. Come la scuola può contribuire a costruire la legalità del noi e come un cittadino
how school can contribute to the culture of us, how a citizen can be not folded to criminality. So if you can tell us very shortly, answer very shortly. I didn't speak of vulnerability, educational vulnerability. So another great problem is educational vulnerability. And a great opportunity for exploiting people is the educational vulnerability of young people. Recently there was an anti-mafia initiative in Bari where the clan became the most powerful of the city of Bari, because it has a great capacity of fascination on young people. So mafias have an educational model. When we think of the mafia model, we must not think of a model characterized by an educational vacuum. No, there is an educational model made of values, the so-called values of the street, where honesty is identified. It seems honesty, especially young people who are without points of reference, who are in distress. The mafia brings you from the street to jail. Why? Because the mafia operates in franchising with young people. Show me that you can make violence, that you can make cruel things, that you can do the crimes that I ask you to do. After that, I give you this recognition, the affiliation. The affiliation takes place in the jail. That is how you show with the facts your availability to take on this brand. And then with my affiliation, I recognize, I sacramentalize my adhesion, my bond with, my covenant with the mafia, which is rich in values, that is connected to your family of origin. You make a leap in belonging. Since that moment, your only family is the mafia family, with a code that is the code of omerty, which is the denial of everything. So school is important in connection to this. Schools are strategic. the school makes more noise than anti-mafia magistrates. So many questions that we see from people concerning the fear, for example, fear of these organizations and the courage that is needed to go ahead. So I ask Gianni Bianco, editor of the third channel of Rai Italian Television, because if on the one hand there is a prosperous mafia, on the other hand there are many citizens who are ready to do their part in order to break the chains of violence. What can you tell us, Gianni? Because with your work you have spoken with many people, you have got to know many people. Yeah, for sure, what Giuseppe said about pandemics, the fact that he reminded us how important it is to go ahead together. Undoubtedly, pandemic isolated us, and it is even more difficult now, the work of associationism, which is sometimes reduced to a virtual meeting on a digital platform, like the one that we are using, because it enables us to keep in touch, but social distancing was a risk to decrease the networks of solidarity, weaken the networks of solidarity and create problems in this us and make it weaker. And so it made more difficult the choice of the courage in this economic crisis that already existed, as Virginia said, and this sensation of abandonment, as Giuseppe Gatti said with the episode connected to his investigation of the person who is afraid to witness because he's afraid to remain alone. But there are also elements of hope. For example, in January, last January, an operation that got to the arrest of 16 mafia people, certainly out of commitment of the magistrates in making light on this organization in Palermo, and also out of the help of some traders who decided to give their witness. And this in March 2021 in Calabria, cautery measure between the province of Catanzaro and Crotone. But this happens because some traders decided to shift to the other side and collaborate with justice, because in the press conference of presentation, in telling the details of the operation, the procurator of Catanzaro, Mr. Gratteri, said that the victims trusted us in an area where people say that mafia does not exist, and this is a comfort. 2 days ago, the story that becomes viral on the social of Cavalier Condorel, a famous entrepreneur. He produces Sicilian cakes. He received, was affected by blackmail, but he immediately denounced it to the police, and then there were investigation and arrest, but in the tabs, those who asked him for money also said, no, leave him alone because he made a denunciation and he's too big in order to answer to our request. Someone is asking, much money will arrive to the south. I am very scared without control of the state what will happen with these big fundings given to the south, or will there be entrepreneurs that will use these funds for the common good? We cannot say that only evil is there, but there are good things around. No, but our friend who asked this speaks about a serious, a real problem. It's clear that this flow of money coming from Europe makes people willing to earn. In the past, the mafias have grown thanks to public funding. An example for everyone is the one of Camorra with a bigger flow of money for the earthquake of 1980. We remember that those who lived in that area and lived there also paying with their life and thousands of victims. And what happened after is that Camorra became stronger because of all that money. Also the recent events, the great natural catastrophe, the appetites of the mafia. So there must be a rigid control on these episodes so that they are not repeated, because we already lived that in the past. So it is right to have one of these topics that is one of the topic of the recovery plan. So from this point of view, information must play a role in doing the guard dog, in the watchdog, to understand from where this money will get to the mafia people. But also want to emphasize another aspect. Certainly, we have to gather stories that talk about another part of the country. It is up to us, journalists, and it is right virtually to bring the burden of those people. In this virtual room, we have to bring other voices, voices of citizens who in the pre-pandemic period, they shared their stories, they made these steps, but the pandemic was not there, but there was another virus that, as Giuseppe was saying, the virus of the mafia mentality. The first couple I wanted to introduce are Piper and Denza. They are in Reggio Calabria, they are there for 25 years. They decided to denounce the blackmailers who asked them for money, and they paid very hardly. They were threatened, they received outrage, live under escort, but they decided to remain living in Calabria. They never left Calabria. So I want to start with their story.
Chiederei alla regia il video di Bentivoglio.
So we can have the video of Bentivoglio. Security is important for the growth of economy, said Minister Minniti on the day of trade association. I like Legality. 30% of traders were threatened, and Tiberio Bentivoglio is one of them. For 25 years in Reggio Calabria, he's trying to go ahead despite the many intimidations and the attacks he received. We'll try to do it until the end, but we wanted to win. We want the state. We wanted to have behind us someone who supports us in a concrete way. 25 years ago, Tiberio Bentivoglio announced for the first time the racket. Since then, he received many, many attacks. Today, the shop he has with his wife is in a place that was seized from the mafia. There is a police outside, but they never lose the smile. This, to be sad, would not help the other traders, because what we did not do it only for ourselves, but we did it so that other traders can follow our examples. Other people, especially the bureaucracy, you know, a folder that is there for 3 years and nobody takes care of it, that is very bad. I prefer a bomb in my shop. I open 24 hours after my dynamite attack. Despite the difficulties, it is good to denounce, to show that we can win. That's what we are doing. Other traders are doing that. It is not true that we are just a drop in the ocean. There are other entrepreneurs who rebelled. So even if there are still a few of us, we are a few, but we want to become more.
Ecco, insomma. Questa è una storia, quella di Tiberio.
So this is the story of Tiberio and Denza. I wanted to remain in Calabria to tell you the story of great Gaetano Sabiotti. He has very much in common with Tiberio for the fact that he decided to remain in that beautiful land, which is Calabria, with a strong presence of Ndrangheta, so dangerous and capable of working in all the knots of social and political life. Gaetano, he is an entrepreneur also, so you'll see a passage in this service. It seems he addresses every one of us. It seems that he's asking on what side we want to be. That's the metaphor he used. If you wanted to be locomotives or just parts of the train, if you want to be only passive viewers. So please let us watch this second experience.
Pure per posare la fibra ottica in Sicilia.
Also for the optical fiber in Sicily, they asked for money. So the pizza remains one of the main sources of gain for mafia. And somebody says no. And Gianni Bianco met one of the first entrepreneurs who said no in Calabria. Not only you can, but you must do what I did. It is difficult today. There's no alibi. For 16 years, Gaetano Safiotti lives under escort. One of the first witnesses of justice. He rebelled, he made arrest dozens of criminals by opening a way, and he paid that with isolation. Everybody disappears, family members, suppliers, but I had these, had provided, so it was easy to go beyond this after a very hard beginning. Now we collect the fruits, and that's good. In a book, he tells his story, the story of a man who decided to remain in Calabria and continue to work with his real name, because to flee would be a defeat. So there are locomotives and wagons. You're not born like that. You have to choose whether you want to be a locomotive or a wagon of the train, if to be a protagonist in your life or a simple appearance. So he won a few months ago with his company. He destroyed a house of a man of the mafia. You know, this choice, I got to know two friends who are essential for every person. Freedom and dignity. All the rest has no price. The rest is priceless. Freedom and dignity. So that's what we say, Gianni. There are many sufferings, fear, concern. So they face the mafia with open face. But for other people, the choice of denunciation follows more complicated pathways, isn't it? Yes. In fact, the risk of sharing these stories is to give the impression that everything is easy, because these are special people, those who expose themselves. They are special, but they feel they are not heroes, and that is how they think they are normal people. But in this way, they give the idea that everything is very simple. But it is possible to meet different stories. Like one day, I received a phone call in my office, and a restaurant man in Gela, he called me from abroad because he had gone abroad. He had a restaurant in Gela in Sicily. He used that as his own house, as if he was the owner. He accumulated debts, so eventually he decided that in the name of that dignity that Gaetano mentioned, he decided to go away, to run away, but also to denounce, to make this step, enabling the arrest of his blackmailers. He called me because he wanted to share this story, but how to share? So it happens frequently that the request is legitimate when it is not our proposal to the person who is interviewed, be interviewed with a counterfeit voice in order to hide the identity. But beyond these, he wanted other guarantees because he was scared. So he asked me to have a hug on his head, hook on his head in order not to be recognized or to look more tall, bigger, or choose together the background for interview as neutral as possible so that people could not localize the secret place where we met in order not to give signs to those who were searching for him. So let us look at this. At the beginning, I worked 600,000 lire, then with the euro, we shifted to 300 euro per month. But they came to eat in my restaurant. Threats and this for 12 years. The boss of the mafia considered this. They were not only content with the pizza, every occasion was good to eat for free without paying anything. So he sold everything and he went away. I couldn't hold it, and I was drawn into a reality that did not belong to me in an earth, in a land that did not belong to me, but I wanted to bring something home without anybody comes to take things from me. That is why I went abroad. He tried to start from scratch, but he did more. He found the courage to talk and give names. 32 arrests were done in those few days. So everything I had in myself, I took it out to be well with myself, to get rid of a burden, so that I can say, oh, finally I'm free. At least with this, I can encourage other people from my town, from Gela, to do my same action. I feel like a disabled person now, but maybe a way of the sick can take me away, but one day, but this is justice.
Prima di andare avanti, Gianni, io
Before
saluterei.
we continue, Gianni, I would like to greet and thank Professor Luigi Nobruni, who needs to leave us. We thank him deeply for having been with us, whereas moving ahead in this conversation of ours and this very deep witness there. They say, Gianni, that to fight mafia organizations, we don't need heroes, but normal people. Better still if they are supported, as you often said with Giuseppe, by the us of a community. And we are going back on the main concept of the evening, which is the legality of us. Yes, because perhaps very briefly, we need to tell the story of what happens after the courage of entrepreneurs like those we've just heard, those we have had here with us to listen to their story. The arrests follow, and sentences, and of course prison for those who perpetrated a crime, as well as confiscation of assets and of real estate. But in the last 25 years, something wonderful happens at the end of all of this, and we haven't understood the full meaning of it. And what happens is that as citizens, we are back into play thanks to a great gift that Don Luigi Ciotti has mainly given to us, promoting with the people of Libera, a law which is used to promote legality in the social use of assets which have been confiscated from mafia organizations. There is another kind of courage as well. This is the courage of a community. a community which manages cooperatives, and these cooperatives often find themselves fighting in the front line because those mafia representatives who have lost their assets are certainly not happy to see them in the hands of others, and so attacks and other forms of threats ensue. So I would like to recall that land that Giuseppe was talking about, that wonderful region which is Puglia in the south of Italy, and Foggia, which is a province where Giuseppe worked. And this is one of the situations which is more problematic, because in Cerignola, one of the towns there, in a land which was confiscated from a local boss, mafia boss, a cooperative is trying to help people, and they called it the stone discarded by the builders, not because they're particularly religious, but because the concept of the stone discarded means that you take something and you can ensure that people who were previously inmates imprisoned have the opportunity to find a second life. And there is an us which welcomes those who made a mistake. In Foggia, 40,000 people were at the demonstration organized against the mafia by Libera. These are people who fight locally in order to promote legality, such as the youth from a cooperative of Cerignola, which in a confiscated asset try to give work to those who try to exit criminal circuits. I have had an opportunity. They gave me an opportunity. Why not give it to others? Let's help others. And in 5 years, we've seen 140, 150 people coming here for their alternative sentence. Not all saw it through, but about 10 did. And Giuseppe, formerly involved in alcohol and drugs and dangerous friendships, now is working in the fields and proves to those who took the wrong road that honesty and hard work can make a difference. It's an effort. One is tilling the land, and the other one is the changing is hard, but I can do it. And if I managed it, why not others? Okay, welcome, and especially welcome to your home. This is an asset which used to belong to a powerful mafia boss. And the mafia has been here for years, and you can feel it in the fields. Somebody died here who was a victim of black labor, and they set up a supply chain of tomato which is entirely legal. These are young men and women who were sentenced by the state, but this is an alternative sentence where we try to make a cornerstone out of the stone that the builders discarded. Many complicated stories have gone through here, but it's great to be able to prove that with an opportunity you can make a change. Helping others is wonderful, and helping and having an opportunity like I did is even better. Thank you, Gianni. Thank you for this witness that you have shared with us. Thank you. If I may say one thing, Sarah, if I'm still connected. So a few questions are coming in at this point in time, and others on my mobile, as well as greetings. I'd just like to say that I know that we are linked up with some students of Italian schools, particularly with Prato, from Prato, where with Giuseppe, we have been for 3-4 years in a row to undertake some projects. I would like to embrace all these students and say that it's been a very difficult year. Giuseppe said so as well, but we are ready to start again as soon as you have the opportunity to meet again and to move ahead with them and those who wish to do it with us. We're here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Wonderful inscription we saw in the video is "Here the mafia lost." We should be able to say this everywhere. We'd also like to be able to choose to be main actors and not just walk-ons, engines and not simple carts in a train. And others have chosen to do this in the summer 8 years ago in a meeting on legality. When we spoke about the legality of us, this young lady was among those present, and among them there came about a desire to help those people who are the most marginalized and are in greater trouble. So summer campus came about, and they continue with the pandemic this year, even though they are reconfigured. Eugenia is going to talk to us about this. Hello, good evening, everyone. Of course, what you describe, this is the context in which we created the summer campus by Youth for United World throughout Italy. And the experience came about on the wave of enthusiasm generated during the summer of 2013. In Caserta, the Youth for United World met for a meeting on legality, where Don Luigi Ciotti spoke to us, Giuseppe Gatti and Gianni Bianco, of course. During those days, the desire to get involved firsthand came about. Don Luigi Ciotti invited us to be protagonists of hope, and our intent was that of alleviating the various wounds we saw in everyone in our various cities. And it is the outskirts, the peripheries, where development which is not organic enables arrested development to proliferate. It was the first year of the campus, and we went to Syracuse in Sicily on request of the local community. Their desire was that of involving us in order to give the children populating those districts a different summer, one without worries, made with games and sports made to measure for them. And from many parts of Italy, Youth for United World responded to this, and we became inhabitants of that area. It was very important from the beginning to organize everything together with the good energy of the local area, with the elementary school who hosted us and who became a bridge between us and the families, local associations, and also those institutions which welcomed us. The workshop activities with children made us aware of their hard life and taught them to express themselves, sometimes with aggressive gesture. Trying to go beyond this initial attitude, there was a need of their part to look to us as people they trusted. In brief, there was a constant search for affection towards us, as well as those mornings spent with the children. As young people, we built training slots of active citizenship in order to understand what the periphery is without prejudice, with all negative aspects and potential. We were helped by external people, parish priests, or people belonging to other religions, psychologists, town development experts, and members of associations fighting against organized crime. And we opened these moments up to families in order to set up change processes and to rebuild social ties through presence, dialogue, and civil commitment. The strong point of campus, which then allowed us in the next summers to go to Rome, Turin, Bologna, is certainly the experience of growth that young people undertake together, when you feel that you can really be a tool of change and that others support you. You become brave, and you want to take this breath of fresh air to your town as well. The activities we brought forward these years in the various cities of Italy were not only pertaining to the being animators for children in difficult neighborhoods, but young migrants and the families of prisoners, inmates. This is always in synergy with associations, parishes, or people who operate locally, and people which our young people support and help during the summer. Even our active times on active citizenships are always take place, though they take on different shape and content every year. We always remain the phrase of Pope Francis, which we painted as a graffiti at the entrance of the school in Syracuse, which is this: from seeds of hope planted patiently in the peripheries which have been forgotten of our planets, where the gems of tenderness fighting to survive in the darkness of exclusion, we will see large trees, we will see forests which will spread oxygen in this world, and a network of Youth for United World, which in the summer through summer campuses animates the life of some cities of Italy, has maintained its liveliness also last year, where everything was ready last year in March, and then the lockdown stopped us. So the 2020 edition obviously had to be cancelled, but this summer we will multiply the opportunities, because there is an even greater need to meet, and our campuses will be smaller, but there will be more of them. And as we saw earlier from our flyer, first of all, the city of Prato will be involved, where a group of Youth for United World have thought of organizing the campus, sharing with those who will participate the experience of an after-school camp in a multi-ethnic district of the city. This is an activity which they carry forward, and they've been carrying forward for some time. So at the same time, the Prato campus, between the 24th of July to the 2nd of August, is organizing other actions in the center and in the north. Furthermore, there will be the opportunity to live together, always linked online, with some times of training of active citizenship, as I mentioned earlier. So we really invite all those young people who are interested to get in touch with us, and perhaps we can show our flyer on screen. There is an email there, and furthermore the website, our website, where that you will find up-to-date news to ensure that as many people as possible can participate and share this experience with us. campusgmu@gmail.com. Those who are interested can write to you between the 24th of July to the 2nd of August. Thank you. What you have said to us is very interesting, also because it's a result of this legality of us, because there are that summer there were 3 of this evening's protagonists: Don Luigi Ciotti of the Libera Association. Good evening, Don Luigi. Good evening, everyone. With Libera, you defined mafia, corruption, and pandemic a dangerous triangle which we don't talk about enough. And for this reason, it may become normalized. What can we do from the point of view of this us in order to avoid that mafia and corruption is considered an evil that cannot be fought? Well, the first thing we need to highlight tonight too, and our friends who spoke before me have highlighted, is to ensure that the immense steps undertaken in the last few years come to light. Esteem and full recognition to those who have been engaged in all fronts. I think of the great work of the judiciary, the police, but some segments of the institution I'm very grateful to, and also portions of civil society which are greatly engaged. So it seems important for me to highlight the positive elements which are there, the great steps ahead which were undertaken. This, of course, does not exempt us from the responsibility to ensure that even the challenges come about, and therefore I would share a datum with you today, and it's crucial to reflect on the fact that in our country, this danger, this subtle danger of normalization has come about, because alongside the commitment, the wonderful positive things that we do see, that we do touch every day in the majority of people, a climate has come about of normalization. And you understand that this is something we didn't just make up one morning, but it is the result of a very careful and precise, across the board data search. And what is really impressive is that we normalize evils and problems which were never truly addressed and struggled against, despite, I repeat, the admirable commitment and sacrifice of many. And we have been talking about mafias for 200 years. It's 200 years that these issues exist, by making all the positive elements emerge, which was there and is there. But despite all this, we continue talking about mafia organizations, and we have been doing so for 200 years. And now in our country, we are going towards a normalization. There's one of many problems, and that's fine. When I talk about mafias, I talk about all the effects, which is usury, money laundering, eco-mafia, agro-mafia, gambling, certain segments of gambling, drug trafficking. It seems to be normal. Nobody talks about mafia and drugs today in its seriousness, the great business there is, which is one of the great sources and pillars that the mafia has, and their power and their undertakings. So this normalization, this taking for granted a range of problems that you rightly have mentioned and placed in our view, seems to me to be fundamental. Another element which I wish to highlight, and to answer the question which has been sent my way, is that we talk about this European fund, which is anyway our own money, European money, which is distributed because we have been through a hard time, a complex time of a great effort and suffering. But here too, we have the duty to ensure that the positive elements emerge. For example, generosity. We were able to see so many people who have really put themselves in play, and the sacrifice of many, many, many people. And therefore, during this coronavirus situation, during this pandemic, the efforts, the suffering, and the hopes, even death, including the death of many generous people, and this closeness to those who were and who are committed.
But be careful. 281 million that are for our country, Italy, and these billions go also to other countries of Europe, according to some percentages. Okay, so 221 billion euro. Everybody talks about that, discuss about that every day, that they will get to our country. But I want to say that more or less for the same amount, it is the same amount that every year, every single year, not una tantum, but it is the same amount, maybe with some benefits in saying this number. But if we sum put together the quantity of drug, money laundering, forms of usury, eco-mafias, and gambling, if we put together all these pieces, even with approximation, we risk to touch a total amount which is not like the una tantum, but every year the criminal organization with the corruption, with the mafia, do this game. It is their power, it is their strength, and they impoverish us, all of us. So how important it is is the call that was made here, and I want to emphasize strongly that it is not enough reforms because we need political choices, clear political choices in opposition to all these, and not only against, but in order to build pathways that can give freedom and dignity to people as we did so far. But it is not enough the reform of politics if politics does not self-reform, if it does not focus on these problems, but the life of people. Here we have the life of people at stake. We must be fighters for life. The association I represent, which is an us, it is not against the mafias, against corruption, against illegality. Of course we are against, but especially we are for building pathways of freedom, pathways of dignity of life for everyone. Because mafias take away life from people, they crush it, they humiliate, and the same about corruption, the same about forms of illegality and forms of poverty. So, politics should self-reform, it should become focused on this attention and change. Change begins with our consciousness, from our way of being. So we must fight so that politics change, but also we must change ourselves, because we must really put ourselves at stake, assume our type of responsibility, and when we touch with hand this danger of normalization, then we need to recover in facts and in our commitment 3 words. First, need of knowledge, need for knowledge. We have to know. We cannot live with second-hand information and because for hearsay. We have to defeat a very serious sin, which is the sin of being convinced to know in a superficial way. No, everything like that. No, we have to go on depth. We have to equip ourselves. I say this to myself, to the wonderful people who are our young people, the will to get to know things, to go in depth. Knowledge is fundamental, is crucial. The second important word is knowledge triggers awareness. If you know, you can become aware of some problems and you become aware. And the third, you take on your responsibility. You become responsible. We need all over the earth to be responsible citizens, not the citizens according to the emotions, according to the urgencies, no. Responsible citizens, not with the intermittent citizens. We have to take on our part of responsibility. So this is us that is really important, because with us you teach us, you teach me that this is echoed, this echoes a vital function for society, because society is enriched thanks to the contribution of everyone. And it is enriched by building together a horizon of life. And it is not over with the borders of the self, but with the horizon of life in which I called, and the meaning of this encounter, that is to extend this dimension into the us. So I have to get out more, get out of myself to the self to organize the us. This is the meaning and the importance of collective commitment. The arts is a vital function, I repeat, for all of society. So knowledge, awareness, and responsibility. But we need more than that, because it must not only be a parenthesis, all of this. I believe that we need, besides the fact that we had heard about a united world from the Focolarini, these beautiful young people, and they greet them with much affection, with gratitude, because you are wonderful. You are wonderful, really. So please, I recommend it. I say this to Eugenia because we met in Caserta. Please go ahead, Eugenia. Your beautiful friends, go ahead. Because already your united world represents a whole world. So please continue to feed. We have to be fed with ethics, with the freedom, without ever forgetting, but these are things that you said, that you in your meetings you reflected upon. And we repeat it together without ever forgetting that we are free, always for someone, not against someone. We have to spread this idea of freedom. We have to commit ourselves for this freedom, because illegality, poverty, corruption, and mafia do not set us free. They impoverish us. They mortify society. And Pope Francis is right when he says that the commandment do not kill. It is not only direct violence. I kill someone. Yeah, sure. We don't want to forget about the victims, all the victims of this criminal violence. But also we don't want to forget the victims of the Holocaust that is consumed today at the borders of Europe, the Holocaust that takes place in the Mediterranean Sea, this homicide inertia, this murdering inertia, because if you don't become aware of these, then, okay, we put up our sleeves and put ourselves at stake, but we have to raise the tone of our voice, because we have the duty to raise our voice and our commitment in a concrete way, not only with our words, but especially the responsibility we have not to remain still. We have to give back freedom. We must be fighters for freedom, for dignity of everyone. Eugenia, you teach me it is a climb up. There are so many things to do. It is an uphill, but do not be discouraged. Don't be discouraged. Because sometimes I also question myself, I stop, I look inside myself, I become aware of my fragility, of my limitations. But then when you see many people who are forced to go down on their knees in order to bring home some little money, when you see the faces, innocent faces, victims of violence, of criminal violence, and you feel that we cannot be overwhelmed. Yeah, it is human to become aware of our fragility, because fragility is part of human nature. But to become aware, to be even stronger. Those who are aware of their fragility understand better the fragility of others. So don't be discouraged. We can anagraphically be young, but generously great, big. How big you are with your reflections, with your camps, with this moment you wanted to organize this event, this conference. So it is really worthwhile. I represent an house called Libera, and you find it all over Europe. You find Libera even in Latin America. You find it in this united world that you to represent in Africa also, not only in Italy. And who are the protagonists? They are citizens. It is you, young people, people we met in the street, in the university, and we meet them in the outskirts, and also in jails, in prisons. We find them where there is suffering. And together, we try to put at stake to do our part, because our part is to be citizens, citizens who play the game. Christians who do not only say, "Oh, my Lord," as the gospel says, but we just throw ourselves into the fight. My dear friend was right. While dying, he gave me as a gift his priestly stole that he used during his last year of disease, Father Tonino Bella. And one day he got to the point to tell to his faithful, to his priests also, these words. I'm not concerned about who is God, I don't care, but I want to know on what side he is, on what side God is. So, my God, it is not possible. It is not enough to say, my Lord, with the Virgin Mary and all the saints who are the first who get angry if they see that we just do things with our mouth and we don't put ourselves in the midst of all this. The gospel is our point of reference, and everybody in their country, we have our own constitutions, because even the Italian constitution, if it is put into practice to the end, the Constitution is the first true anti-mafia text, beginning with Article 3 that talks about freedom, about dignity, and creating the social policy that is so important and so fundamental for people. And why for many years we have been talking about the mafia, despite the commitment, the generosity of many, and the steps we made. And you know why, Eugenia? Because the true problem, we said the fight against mafia and the corruption, they require adequate measures, juridically repressive, but for them to be incisive, we need a great cultural commitment, an educational commitment, and a social commitment. So fight to mafia, what is it? We do it with love, with culture, we do it with school. We do it with a social service for people, with a policy for health, fight to mafia and against corruption. We do it with all these. And so Pope Francis is right, and I go back there when he says that the commandment do not kill is not only about violent death, when I murder someone, yeah, of course, but it is also, you can kill also when you mortify the life of people, when you crush the dignity of people. You can kill if you do 1,000 speeches with a lot of fried air, but eventually you don't put yourself at stake at the side of our commitment of our daily life, with all the things that we do, and spend some of our life to give life to others, in order to give life, to give trust, to give hope. So you are wonderful with all these. You are really beautiful.
Io credo che dobbiamo piantare
I think we have to plant together now even more now the seed of co-responsibility, so that the gems, the us, more and more this us, because only together we can build a more just society where we can recognize ourselves as different as people and equal as citizens. And you teach me, Eugenia, because this is life. Life is a relationship. To break the relationship, it means to kill life. And we can see with our hands that how many forms of fragility, how many suffering. If you think that Italian university loses 40% of its students on the way, if in the country that I love, and I do love my country, they say by thinking of other countries that are connected to your beautiful companions, and everybody does a reflection. And I like to make a reflection that embraces the whole of Europe. Because, wow, to you, if you think only of Italy, a new humanism in Europe, first of all, but with a vision in the world that does not come short, that focuses on the person, on the basic needs of people, that responds to our this exercise of our responsibility and duty. So a new humanism have to fight together. And on the other hand, we have an integral ecology. Pope Francis showed that with beauty, with wonder, this encyclical, and he said this evening, a great friend who wanted to go away, but he said it with the strength, the cry of the poor, the cry of the earth. It is important, Eugenia and your friend who are connected say the same, because I was born on the street. I was 17, and when I was 20, my Abele group were continues to live. The group, us, and the national coordination, and accompanied in the first stage, then it is up to other people to put these different welcoming together. And the fight against AIDS, and after the massacres of Capaci, of Via D'Amelio, all those magistrates who were killed, Falcone, Borsellino, Francesca Morbillo, and never forget about the beautiful, wonderful young people of the state police. They spent their life, they lost life in order to protect the life and the magistrates to fulfill their commitment. So, sorry for interrupting, but okay. So best wishes, so that all together we can do that.
Thank you very much. We carry with us the words that you have entrusted to us: knowledge, awareness, and responsibility. In the Zoom chat and on the social, we can see enormous thanks from all of you. So, and also to this legality of us, which emerged from all these contributions. I selected one in particular, which says, us is the great opportunity that we have. Let us therefore be together like tonight and work on legality. One of the entrepreneurs that we heard earlier said that he felt like a grain of sand. Pope Francis said that we are all grains of sand, but together we form a wonderful beach. And this is wonderful through the method that Don Ciotti has recalled to mind. We need to be with someone, with the group, but never against somebody. And this is also the method of Youth for a United World. We have now reached the end of this meeting of ours, but the various events of the United World Week continue, starting from tomorrow, 7th of March, the 3 days of International Forum Dare to Care, which will begin at 12 o'clock. At 1 o'clock, David Sassoli will be with us, the President of the European Parliament, and he will talk about politics, peace, welcoming migrants, and ecology. These are themes that Don Ciotti has also mentioned. On the 8th will be the Care Day, Day of Care, and there will be the event, A Vaccine for all the next day with economists Jeffrey Sachs, Pasquale Ferrara, and the teacher of Sofia, professor of Sofia University, Catherine Benjamin. Sunday is the last day of the United World week. There will be the launch of a pathway, and we are truly at the end. Thank you, Luigino Bruno, who had to leave, Giuseppe Gatti, Gianni Bianco, Gianluigi Ciotti, and Eugenia Pressone. Thank you very much. Thanks to the organizers of this wonderful week for United World. Thank you for the interpreters for being patient with us, and the control room, Jose Luis. Thank you very much indeed, and thanks to all those who followed us. Thank you, and have a great evening.
Gondoskodás.
Polvoda.
Care.
Proteger.
Забота.
رعاية. Prendre soin.
Ter atenção.
Sorge tragen. Niaisu.
Cuidar.
Aruga.
Curar.